Hello students, this is Miss Dalton, and in this video we're going to talk about writing quadratic equations. So we have two goals for this video. The first is to write quadratic equations given a vertex and a point on a graph, and the second one is write quadratic equations given the roots, which are also the zeros or the x-intercepts, and a point on the graph. Okay, so let's review on what our three different forms are for quadratics. We have standard form, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We have vertex form, which is y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k, and that's where the vertex is hk. And then we also have intercept, which is also called factored form, and that's y equals a times x minus r1 times x minus r2, where r1 and r2 are the roots, which are the x-intercepts. So if you think about these different forms, if we were given the vertex, then vertex form is probably going to be the easier one to start with. If you were given the x-intercepts, then intercept form would be the easiest place to start with. So let's look at a couple of examples. First, I want you to write down just some steps that will help you out. For the first step, you want to choose the most appropriate form based on the information that you're provided. And so this is where you're going to analyze what you're given and then start with the appropriate quadratic form that would make most sense. Then you're going to substitute the known information in for the correct variables and solve for any unknown variable, rewrite it in simplified form, and then make sure you check your answer. Checking your answer is just as easy as, typing it into the calculator and making sure the quadratic graph has the information that you were given. That would be one way to check it. And there's a couple of other ways as well. Okay, so let's look at this first example. So we're going to write the equation for a parabola that has a vertex of -2, 3, and it passes through the point -4, -1. So if you remember, your vertex is your hk, and then if we're looking at it going through a specific point, then that point could go in for x and y. So it's going to make most sense to start with vertex form because we do know what the vertex is. So we're going to take these values that we have for x, y, h, and k, and we are going to substitute them into this equation so that we can find a. So right here we've got y. Well, y is -1, so we're going to put in a -1 equals, then the a, and then the x is -4, minus the h. Well, the h is a -2, so make sure that you put a minus negative, and that's going to be squared, and then we've got the plus k here. So, sorry. So the plus k is plus 3. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So we've got -1 equals the a. I don't know why the tops of these are not coming in on this pen, but -4 minus a negative. So minus negative changes to a positive. -4 plus 2 would be -2. And then we're going to square that. See if I can get that. And then we've got plus 3. Okay, so -1 equals, -2 squared gives you 4, so we've got 4a plus 3, and we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. That gives you -4 equals 4a, and divide by 4, so a is going to be equal to -1. This gives us our a, so now we can plug that back into the equation. Again, when you plug it back into the equation, you only need your h, your k, and your a. So you're going to have y equals the a, which is -1, and then x, because it was minus a negative, I'm going to go ahead and write that as +2 or +2 squared, and then we have our plus 3. And there's our equation in vertex form. Let's in what we know. Another example. In this example, it says write an equation for a parabola that has roots of 0 and -4 and passes through the point -3, -4.5. So the point again is going to be your x and y. Because you are given your roots, then it's going to make more sense to plug this into the intercept form, which is also considered the factored form, and those roots are going to go in for R1 and R2. So let's go ahead and substitute. Okay, so we have y. Well, y is -4.5 equals a, we don't know, and we're going to use the x, which is -3, minus the R1 of 0, times x again, -3, minus the R2, which is -4. So now let's simplify that. We've got -4.5 equals the a times -3 minus 0 is -3, and -3 minus a -4 changes that to a +4, and that equals 1. So we've got -3 times 1, which is going to give us -3a, and that's equal to that -4.5. Divide both sides by -3, so we're going to get a equals 1.5. Okay, so if we were to write that back into intercept form, we would have y equals 1.5, and then we'd have our factors. Now, because we have x minus 0, that's the same thing as just x. So we could just put x, and then in the second parenthesis, we would have x minus a -4, which is the same thing as +4. So we could stop there. Now let's say that they wanted to know what it is in standard form. Well, in standard form, what you would do is now you would take that and you would distribute this through. And so you would end up with, you would have y equals 1.5 x squared, and then 1.5x times 4 would give you, let's see, it would just give you 6, so plus 6x. And then now this is written in standard form, so we have standard form here, but we also have the vertex form here. So if it doesn't matter on how they write it, then you can choose. If it does ask you to write it into standard form, then you would just make sure that you would distribute. Okay, well that's it for this video. Make sure you've taken good notes and then come to class ready to work on some practice problems.